Hey folks, I'm Maria Noel Groves, author of Body into Balance and Grow Your Own Herbal Remedies, and I'm speaking to you today from Wintergreen Botanicals in Allenstown, New Hampshire. And today I want to talk a bit about one of my favorite herbs, and that is lemon balm. And this is just a fantastic nervine and so many more things on top of that. So let's dive right in. I want to do a little bit of a shameless plug right now because I have a online and in-person series that's starting this June in 2022. It's my Home Herbalist series, which is my most popular by far herbal home study series. And it's basically going through all the basic body systems as well as all the major remedy making techniques. And each of the 9 classes is focused on a body system and 1, sometimes 2 remedy making techniques. And each class is about 3 hours long, and we'll be meeting on Thursday nights in 2022 this summer from June through the end of August for about 9 classes total. And there are also a bunch of bonus video herb walks and bonus classes that you can access as online recordings as part of your registration, plus all sorts of additional benefits, including series discounts, 1-year Student American Herbalist Guild membership. There is the option to get a remedy kit along with your series registration, but I only have those for the first 25 people registering. And the series is going to be simultaneously being taught out of my classroom. We only have a maximum of 12 spaces in person in my Allenstown, New Hampshire classroom. And at the same time, I will also be live streaming it. And that minus the limitations on how many remedy kits we have as far as other attendees, we can have, as many as would like to register. So you're welcome to check that out. I do also have this series available pre-recorded on demand anytime, but it is really fun to get to attend live so that it's a little bit more interactive and you can ask questions and all of that. So definitely go to my website, check that out. There is a QR code there, so if you want to, get there by using the QR code, or you can just go to wintergreenbotanicals.com and then check it out from there. So I hope you enjoy that, and we'll move on with our talk today. As you may also know, I'm the author of Grow Your Own Herbal Remedies and Body into Balance, and you can learn more about these books and see samples of them on my website, wintergreenbotanicals.com. I am always happy to ship folks signed books within the United States, but it's also available they're both also available through a lot of other booksellers and also available through other sellers as ebooks. So whatever format works best for you. And I have lots of information available on my website, wintergreenbotanicals.com. And particularly if you go to the Learn More tab, you'll find blog articles, free videos, some sample class notes, virtual herb walks, some of my favorite recipes, and a whole lot more. So definitely check that out if you've not been on my website previously. You can also sign up on my website for my mailing list, and I send out about 1 email a month with lots of informational articles and links to more details, as well as my latest news. Lemon balm is one of my favorite herbs, and it is also a fantastic nervine among many other things. And this is the first herb that I ever really started working with. My mother started growing it in the garden when I was in college, and I was just starting to dive into the world of herbal medicine at that time. And so lemon balm was the first plant that I really started playing with and making remedies with. It's still one of my favorites. I grow it quite a bit in the garden and I use it a lot. It's probably one of the most used herbs in my apothecary as both a tincture and as a herbal tea for myself, but also for my clients. And so this herb has such a long history of use throughout particularly the Mediterranean. So it is very popular in European-based herbalism and Euro-American settler-based herbalism. It also has a long history of use throughout the Middle East and appeared in a lot of our, I don't know if we could really say first herbals, because there are a lot of other first herbals that came out before them, but kind of like what we think of in the Western herbal world as the first herbals that are still in print. So things like Dioscorides De Materia Medica, as well as Ibn Sina's Canon of Medicine. Both of those classic texts refer to lemon balm as one of the many herbs that they cover. So it has a really long history of medicinal use, and particularly around gladdening the heart, relaxing, uplifting. It has a very close relationship with the bees, and actually Melissa is a name that is associated with the bees and how much the bees really love lemon balm. And you'll often find bees, not swarming, but relaxing and chilling out around your lemon balm when your lemon balm is in bloom. And there are a handful of clinical trials on lemon balm that are really pretty fascinating. The research is still kind of preliminary, but it's definitely supporting the traditions of use that we've had for a long time around lemon balm. Really easy to grow in the garden. If you're watching this, you see that I do have some growing information available on my slides. And if you are listening, you can also access the slides to download and watch them. And I've got just some basic growing information on there, as well as some energetics and other odds and ends. And so when you're growing lemon balm, it's pretty happy plant. It can even be a little bit invasive. It will sometimes self-seed, but also it really grows by underground root runners like many other mint family plants. And it can take over if it really likes where it is. And it particularly likes being in like full sun to partial sun with moderately rich soil and some decent amount of moisture, but good drainage at the same time. That said, lemon balm will grow in a lot of different ecosystems and a lot of different habitats. And so if it's a little bit more shady or a little bit drier or a little bit sandier, oftentimes lemon balm will still grow just fine, but it really loves those landscape spots where it's just really pampered but not too burnt out by the sun, in my experience. And you can harvest lemon balm from early spring until later. I actually have a little itty bitty sprig here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just starting to pop up in the garden. We're in April right now, early April, and it's just starting to pop up, and it smells lovely. It smells kind of like lemon pledge, so it's not as yummy smelling as lemongrass and lemon verbena are, but it's still a flavor I really enjoy. And often as it starts to pop up, I'll just take like a little sprig and add it to my green tea or maybe black tea, and it adds that lemony flavor and some of the healing properties to that morning tea beverage, which is kind of fun. So it's one of the ways I first start really working with lemon balm when it first pops up fresh in the garden. You can harvest it pretty regularly. Once it starts to grow up and pretty lush, you can cut it back quite a bit, and then you can dry it, or you can make fresh plant extracts and really enjoy it in the garden. It's just absolutely delightful, and it will continue growing, especially if you're cutting it back periodically. It'll continue growing right through into late fall, and some of my best harvests, especially if I'm drying it, I find that oftentimes those late season harvests are the best because all those aromatics are better retained when it's not so hot out and burning out all of those into the atmosphere. And so oftentimes my, late September, October harvest of lemon balm is just vastly more delicious than my, summer harvest of lemon balm as far as really capturing those flavors. Also harvesting a little bit earlier in the day, maybe after the dew dries, but earlier in the day will also help retain some more of those essential oils in the final product. So medicinally, and especially as a nervine, lemon balm just does such a lovely job helping us relax, but not relax too much, just kind of bring things down a notch and improve focus. It's one of our great nootropic herbs, or sort of smart herbs that helps enhance cognition. There are quite a few studies supporting that in age groups all the way from kids through elders, healthy, as well as folks with dementia, folks who are more neurotypical, as well as folks who have ADHD, and just a pretty wide range. And where it tends to be really particularly helpful is when people are just kind of a little bit either agitated, frustrated, angry, inattentive, hyperactive, any of those kinds of scenarios, a little bit more anxious, any of those scenarios, a lot of times lemon balm just does a really nice job bringing things down a notch, but still having this calm, clear, focus, uplifted effect. And that's nice because sometimes we do need to be calmed down, but we still need to be able to function and focus and work throughout the day. Or we want to be calm, but we don't want to be sedated because we don't want to be put to sleep, or we don't want to aggravate depression. And lemon balm's often really nice at just being that sort of perfect balance for people. And so really lovely, great for lifting the spirits. It has many other benefits as well, but that's probably where it's most often used, whether you're working with it in the daytime or if you're having it later in the evening to relax, unwind, support sleep, and all that. Because even if it's not so sedating, just the fact that it's calming is usually going to help us sleep. It's a very kid-friendly herb as well. So really, really lovely for a lot of folks. So here's just a really beautiful close-up photo of lemon balm. I just love how it looks. I mean, it's not that exciting of an herb in the garden visually, but once you form a close relationship and you get to engage with its aroma and you get to see how it feels in your body, you will often look at a photo like this, like I am, and be like just such a nice plant. I just really love it. So here we have a couple other photos, including one of lemon balm one that's a little bit more obvious of lemon balm in bloom. The flowers are pretty inconspicuous. They're really not that exciting. And while in these pictures, lemon balm really is like at its peak in the garden, would be a great time to harvest it, you will notice that lemon balm, once it flowers, starts to get kind of haggard and tired looking. And so for me, this is a good time that I would harvest it, make great medicine with it, and then I'll get another flush later on that looks really nice. But if for any reason your lemon balm starts to look tired, maybe it got buggy, maybe it got a little too soggy from too much rain, maybe a frost came through and now it's looking all, got little black spots on it, or it's kind of cranky, just cut it back. And oftentimes it will come back really happy and, give it a next flush that you can work with. So don't get too upset if your lemon balm isn't looking too happy in the garden. Just cut it back and it will usually come back really beautifully. So lemon balm does a lot of other things that support us health-wise. So one other area that we tend not to think about it for, but it is a little bit hypoglycemic. It is mildly bitter, it is mildly tannic, and herbs that contain bitter and tannic constituents often do have a little bit of a blood sugar lowering effect. And so especially if you're having it with meals, it can be really supportive for that. It's also something to be aware of if you are sensitive to hypoglycemia, that you may not want to have large amounts of it unsweetened in between meals on an empty stomach, something like that. If you were concerned, maybe you wanted the relaxing effects, but you were having it throughout the day and you didn't want your blood sugar tanking, you could just throw a little bit of honey or some other sweetener in there and that will usually offset it. Or you can have it unsweetened with your meal and usually that will be fine. It's not like our heaviest hitting blood sugar lowering herb by any means, but there is a little bit of research supporting it, and I definitely will notice it myself, these effects, both positively or negatively, depending upon how I'm dosing myself and whether or not it's sweetened and whether or not I'm having it with food. It's also potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, as many mint family plants are, especially when it's fresh or freshly dried and still retains a lot of those lemony essential oils. It is a little bit astringent, not incredibly so, but slightly so because of those tannins. And you'll notice that most if you're making a cup of tea and you let it steep for a long time, if you make a really strong brewed cup of tea with a dry herb, you'll notice more of those astringent tannins. But it's still, again, like kind of moderate on that. It's not our main herb that we think of for astringency. It also does seem to have some supportive effects for possibly reducing autoimmune responses, including for thyroid stuff. Pretty subtle, I think, but it still has some potential benefit there, especially if you're consuming it on a regular basis. There's some concern that lemon balm might be inhibiting to thyroid function. Most likely that it's actually fine, and that the way in which it may support folks with, say, hyperactive thyroid is through calming the nervous system, calming the cardiovascular system, and reducing that autoimmune response. That said, if for some reason you're noticing that your thyroid is tanking as you have started taking lemon balm, then by all means try stopping it and then restarting it and just testing, getting your thyroid tested to see if it is having that effect for you. But I have very rarely seen it, and I've also talked with herbalists around the world, and most herbalists also report that they really don't see a problem with folks with hypothyroid consuming lemon balm. That it has a reputation for being helpful in hyperthyroid, and even in hyperthyroid it's supportive, but it's definitely it's highly unlikely to be the only thing that you're going to need to bring something like hyperthyroid into balance. And hyperthyroid is a very dangerous scenario that sometimes responds to herbs, but not a lot of the time, and it can be dangerous, life-threatening, sometimes lethal. And so you really want to be working with a professional for guidance and ensuring that whatever therapies, natural or conventional, that you're trying, that they're effectively managing that state. So that's just my little word of caution on that. It does just kind of in general have some really nice cardiotonic benefits. It, like many mint family herbs, seems to have a little bit of a support for lipids like triglycerides, cholesterol, just also reducing the oxidative damage when those lipids that are in our blood start to get kind of rancid and cranky and all that. Lipid peroxidation is what we call it. And having more antioxidants in our diet and in our herbal routines generally going to help offset that to some extent. It can also be a little bit calming to things like palpitations, tachycardia, especially when they're associated with stress, but possibly for other reasons as well. And it depends on the person. If those scenarios are more significant, then the herbs may not be sufficient in and of themselves. But it is an herb that you can try out and see how you respond. And one of the nice things about all three of the herbs that I'm going to be talking about today in the full video is that, or you may be catching just the short lemon balm part, but one of the cool things about these mint family plants is they're often immediately pretty helpful. Like you'll get some benefits within 15 to 30 minutes and certainly within the day, and then you can also work with them on a regular basis and see greater benefits over time of using them long term. But they're relatively fast acting herbs, and that's a really nice thing. Some herbs like milky oats are wonderful, but they really work best over the long haul, and you may not notice a difference right away. But with something like lemon balm or holy basil or motherwort, those herbs usually have an effect almost immediately, especially in tincture form, but also in tea form as well. You can also work with lemon balm as an antiviral. There's quite a bit of research on lemon balm and herpes virus outbreaks. It seems to go in and help block out the virus so that it can't get into the cells to replicate. So for something like cold sores, we might think of applying it topically at that very first tingle or when you know you might be susceptible, and it will often make that outbreak shorter, less severe. You can often avert it quite a bit more quickly, and that can be really nice. I also love taking it internally in those states because I think it's also supportive from sort of the inside out. And a lot of times when we do have a herpes outbreak, our nervous system is feeling kind of fried. That might be part of the reason why we're having the outbreak in the first place. Or maybe we were doing okay, but now because we have herpes and we're like anxious that we've got this outbreak and it's itchy and burny and irritating, and that can all be challenging. So having some extra herbal support that works as that nervine to calm us down can be nice as well. And herpes is a virus that really loves to take advantage of the nervous system. And so it's most often associated with being supportive in like cold sore type herpes, but it can also be associated with venereal related herpes, with chickenpox, possibly with shingles, and possibly even with things like Epstein-Barr virus. It might be supportive, and for Epstein-Barr more as a internal remedy. But for kind of like day-to-day cold sores, what a lot of people find helpful is to make a really nice high quality potency fresh plant tincture, apply a little bit of that topically, and then also take a little bit of it diluted internally. And oftentimes people notice a huge benefit from that, especially at the early stages of outbreak, like that first little tingle. Now, it's possible that lemon balm also has some antiviral effects for other types of viruses. So maybe it may also be supportive for a cold and flu, and maybe it may also be supportive for folks who are infected with COVID or at the early stages of COVID. There's no research here, especially on the COVID stuff, but it's something that may have some supportive effects, even if it's not going to be like a cure by any means. And Andrew Brentley talks quite a bit about the supportive effects of lemon balm and has found it quite useful in his practice when working with folks with acute and possibly also preventative scenarios with COVID. But it's not a cure, it's just one of our supportive herbs. Also, in addition to that, lemon balm is moderately bitter and carminative. It's pretty mild as those go, but it can be really nice when folks need gentle digestion support. Maybe they need a little bit more digestive function, but using stronger bitters or stronger carminatives are really irritating for their sensitive systems, or maybe they have a lot of nervousness that's associated with their GI discomfort. Lemon balm would be a great consideration, either as a fresh plant tincture or as a tea, and you can certainly combine it with other herbs as well, but some folks do really well with it just on its own. Be aware that the market quality of lemon balm tends to be really poor, and so I don't generally buy this herb just like on my regular, even from a lot of my favorite big suppliers for herbs. Lemon balm's usually not one that I'm going to get from them, just because it usually isn't as high potency. Lemon balm is really ephemeral and it loses its properties pretty quickly. So this is one that I ideally am growing and making my own medicine out of the garden, which is easy to do. Like one plant can give you lots of medicine throughout the season to work with. If you don't have your own, then I would consider sourcing dried herb directly from a small to medium scale organic United States based farm, so that you're getting, and find out if you're getting like that year's harvest or the most recent year's harvest, and that will usually also have really much better quality than what you're getting on the international herb market. For tinctures, oddly enough, like the companies that I love, my clients report back that they just don't work as well as the fresh made ones that either I've made or that they make on their own. And it's really easy to make tinctures. You just basically shove chopped up fresh plant material in a jar and cover it with high proof alcohol. I use 190 proof personally, but whatever the highest you can get, and let it macerate for about and I shove a lot, like as much as I can humanly fit in the jar, and then I cover it to the tippity top with alcohol, cinch it shut with a nice tight lid, and you can shake it, but like it doesn't really shake because it's so tightly packed. And then after about a month or more, you can strain it out, and that should keep for a couple years, but I wouldn't keep it for more than a few years. You can gauge the potency of your lemon balm for the nervous system by that lemony quality of flavor, and you will notice that after a few years it starts to lose its oomph. So I don't know exactly why the store-bought ones are not quite as potent. I don't know if it's the quantity of plant material, the percentage of alcohol, or how fresh they are, but for whatever reason they don't tend to be. So I would go out and make your own, or find somebody with some growing in their garden if you don't have it, and see if you can borrow some from their yard. Maybe share a little finished bottle of tincture with them. You could also try working with herbal vinegars, herbal honeys, herbal oxymels, glycerites. However, keep in mind that lemon balm is more potent fresh, but it's also so juicy that you're gonna want to probably wilt it a little bit or dry it, and then as soon as it's dry, then make your remedy, so that you're not introducing a lot of water to those other solvents that can go bad much more easily. Whereas with alcohol, as long as it's a high proof alcohol, usually that will be able to withstand all of that water content that's in the fresh plant. So that's just my little word of caution with that. You might do it and with totally fresh herb and turn out just fine, but I have had lots of lemon balm based remedies like honeys and oils and things like that go bad. So I just want to save you that sadness when you have to throw away something that's gone moldy. Let's see, anything else I want to say? I think those are really the big things. I think I've said most of what I want to say about lemon balm, but really just such a lovely, beautiful plant. So on that concept of taking lemon balm, I already gave you quite a bit of information. I love how David Winston, when he's talking about supporting the mood and uplifting the mood, he really likes combining lemon balm fresh plant tincture with fresh plant or fresh buds and flowers of St. John's wort, and finds that the two of them together work much better than either of them alone, according to David. And I do work with St. John's wort a little bit sometimes for mood stuff, but not that often, so I can't comment as much on that combo. A lot of my clients who could use a lot of uplifting mood support are often on medications that would make using St. John's wort inappropriate. Whereas with lemon balm, I do find that I can work with it alongside, your typical SSRI medications, and even potentially alongside anxiety and sleep medications. And as long as we introduce it carefully and slowly, usually we don't run into any problems of oversedation or anything like that. Whereas St. John's wort has a number of different potentially problematic herbal drug interactions. It does blend really well with all sorts of other herbs. So whether you're blending it with other herbs to emphasize different medicinal activities, or you're blending it with other herbs to enhance the flavor, for example, in a tea blend, because as a tea it's okay, but it's not really that exciting. You can really blend it with a lot of other nervines or just other different actions of plants all around. It's a very good supportive herb in formulas, even though on its own it actually is a pretty profound herb. I know that Jim McDonald has this general quote that gentle does not mean weak, and this certainly applies to an herb like lemon balm that is gentle but yet so profound and supportive in such a wide range of scenarios. You can certainly have it as a tea. It's not probably quite as potent as a dried herb tea, but I still love it. In fact, I have like a cup of it here with holy basil and lemongrass and a little bit of honey, and I work with it as a tea a lot. It's often going into my tea blends, whether they're nutritive tea blends or calming tea blends or focused tea blends or immune support tea blends. You'll often find like a spoonful or two of really, lovely, dried from my own garden the previous season lemon balm ends up in that tea blend. And I just think it just plays so well with other herbs in formulas, especially with leafy herbs, but it also plays well with like kind of fruity herbs and citrusy herbs and all of those too. And the studies that have been done on lemon balm have mostly been done on capsules and powders, which are actually the weakest form of lemon balm because it's so ephemeral in its medicinal properties. Having a capsule or a powder just usually isn't all that impressive. So the fact that it did well in studies using capsules and powder is pretty impressive, and you're probably likely to get even stronger benefits with using it as a tincture or a freshly dried tea or some other type of herbal remedy. So definitely an herb to check out if you haven't already, and or if you're already familiar with lemon balm, because a lot of folks who are working with herbs already know lemon balm. Hopefully I've inspired you to think about lemon balm in a few new ways, or just refresh your relationship with this herb. So that's all for today. I just wanted to remind you that I'm Maria Noel Groves. My website is wintergreenbotanicals.com, and you can check out my books, you can check out my classes, and all sorts of free information on my website. You can sign up for my mailing list, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. So happy herbal adventures.